opening statement, or do you want to just take questions?
Well, it's hard to believe another season is here, but it's that time of year. I still am in football mode, but it is basketball season according to the calendar. So we're looking forward to the year. Obviously, with the MAC teleconference just coming out the other day, we've received the prediction of second place in the East Division, and we're happy with that. Obviously, it's, in my opinion, just like every other coach in the country, I think everyone's excited about predictions at the beginning of the year, but more stock is definitely put in where things play out in March and when conference tournament begins. So we've got Tiffin in a second game of a doubleheader on Saturday. Then we travel to the Iona Tournament against University of Michigan, and then we'll either play the winner or loser versus Iona or Arizona. So it's a very difficult non-conference schedule. We scheduled it that way to help prepare us for our conference slate, because in my opinion, of all the years that I've been in this conference, the conference from top to bottom is by far this year the toughest. Having 6 teams go to postseason play last year and have over 20 wins each, I think you can see the same, if not more. And on any given night, anybody can win. And as cliche as that sounds, I mean, that message was echoed among the coaches this year in the teleconference this past week.
Obviously, you have some exhibition games to get ready for, but with that tough non-conference schedule, do you see an uptick in the level of practice, just knowing that, hey, we got a heck of a schedule within the season?
I see an uptick in a shorter fuse because I know what lies ahead of us, and I know how important it is. But as I've said earlier, everybody across the country has been allowed to practice beginning in the summertime, and I think each coach is probably ahead of where they typically are this time of year in regards to conditioning for their team, in regards to what they have in so far, because that additional work definitely helps. But our schedule is very grueling, as much as we're going to look at it game by game. When we put this together last year, it was hard not to see on the horizon 3 Big Tens, a Pac-12, Marist, which is a top 5 mid-major team in the country. Some can make an argument that it's 1 or 2. It's a very demanding schedule this season for sure.
Has Bolton been able to practice yet?
Leah Bolton has not been able to practice yet. She practiced for a couple weeks, then sustained a knee injury, has had successful meniscus surgery. She's currently doing rehab right now and is still out. I do not have a date for her return.
And the other freshmen, are they fitting in, the other 3?
Yes.
How are they fitting in?
We have our freshman class entails, as you mentioned, Leah Bolton from Marist High School in Chicago, Rachel Koneski from Rockford Lutheran in Illinois, Kennedy Kirkpatrick from Lawrence, Kansas, and our closest to home would be Abby Siefker in Ottoville. So we've had a inter-squad scrimmage against our men's practice squad. We've had a closed scrimmage against Cleveland State, and we've had 2 of those 4 have seen significant time. Kennedy Kirkpatrick is nursing a torn muscle and is returned to practice yesterday.
I read the quote in the paper, I think it was yesterday, and if I misquote you, I apologize, but it was sort of like, it depends on the day, if that's how I feel about the team. One day, if we have great practice and I feel it's going to be good, if we have a bad practice, then was that you that was you obviously on a bad day.
That was me on a bad day after practice.
What do you now make of this team?
Well, we have yet to practice today, so as John quoted me, you caught me on a good day today. But everybody in this room knows my mentor, so when I was mentored with the glass half empty as opposed to half full. But for the challenging schedule that lies ahead of us, we are unable to go through a practice where we have multiple turnovers or it's not productive. Our practice schedule is extremely rigorous because we're going early 3 days a week at 6 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. because we have a couple student teachers and I lose them, and those are potentially 2 senior starters. So getting our rhythm and our flow that early in the morning and then losing potentially 2 starters, we will have highs and lows in practice. Yet It is still practice, as Allen Iverson always says. It is practice. I understand that, but we have to make practice as challenging and game-like as possible in order to be successful. And I'm really pleased with our men's practice squad. It's by far the best men's practice squad we've had since I've been here. We get them out of bed at that time as well, so it's been productive having them, and it's helped us for sure. But we need to continue to practice at a consistent level to improve, because what awaits us is a scary forecast if we're not ready.
Talk a little bit about the versatility of this group. I mean, if you're making a starting lineup out, there are a lot of people that you could plug into different positions.
Well, first of all, we have a small roster. We're only 12 on the roster, and we've played, with the exception of Kennedy Kirkpatrick and Leah Bolton, our two freshmen. We've had, as I mentioned, we've had those two scrimmages, and everybody's seen double minutes and made contributions, which has been good. In my opinion, with all the new rule changes and that are occurring in women's basketball, being a deep team is going to be more necessary than any other years, because with the new hand check rules and the new contact rules, you potentially have a chance to shoot 100 free throws between two teams combined. So you're going to see different coaching philosophies throughout the year, depending upon those new rule changes, or with those new rule changes. So I like where we are right now, cautiously optimistic with how well we're getting contributions from our starters and our bench so far from the two scrimmages, as I mentioned. But versatility-wise, Erica Dunneman can play inside and outside. Alexis Rogers, obviously she played some point for us last year. She could play inside and outside as well. We had Katrina Salinas, our junior college transfer, last year as a junior senior this year. She played point. We've solely played her on the perimeter as a 2 or a 3. She hasn't had any reps at the 1, because now we have Jillian Halfville and Rachel Kineski splitting that time. So we do have some freedom to go with some different lineups. I think we can go start a really big lineup as well. If we wanted to go, an Erica Donovan, Alexis Rogers, both on the perimeter, and an Abby Seaburn and Jill Stein, and then a point guard. I mean, that may be our tallest lineup we've had since I've been here since '01, but we do have some versatility this year.
Your mentor also always liked to think about an X factor, a player who might be an X factor. Would that player potentially be Donovan this year?
I believe so, because when you define X factor, it's a little bit of the unknown, and with her having to sit out due to transfer rules from NC State and NCAA last year, a lot of people don't know her. I mean, she attended high school in Toledo for 1 year, but then attended high school in Texas for the remaining 3 years, and then went out of the region, was playing in the ACC, and now she comes back. So some people are unaware of her ability, and I think they'll be pleasantly pleased with what she can contribute. That's a kid that plays extremely hard between the lines. We've asked her to play multiple positions, and she's a quick study as well.
When Alexis came in, it was kind of the same situation, limited minutes and then a year sitting out as a transfer, and she caught her legs. It looked pretty quickly. I mean, maybe a couple games and then got it rolling. Are you expecting the same thing from Erica?
Well, obviously they're two different kids. I don't like to compare kids for sure, but you can use that analogy. Yes, I think Erica was similar with Lex when in their year of residency, that they helped us prepare. They did jump in on the men's practice squad. They did receive reps, with us offensively, but it's one of those things, okay, well, you're not playing, so don't take every shot type of situation. So unlike Alexis, Erica had some knick-knacky injuries last year, spent a lot of time in the training room, and now she's healthy and good to go. And I think the similar impact could be made. Because again, with Lex being from Cincinnati and not being from this region and going to school outside of this region, I think people were pleasantly surprised to see what type of talent she had when she first arrived on the scene. I think people will say the same thing about America.
10-second backcourt not affect this year? Do you press more? And I guess also second part of that question, not that you ever really had an issue of getting the ball across half court, but do you speed up the offense at all?
You know what? It's a double-edged sword, in my opinion, regarding the rule changes, because there is a 10-second backcourt. So now the typical fan that yells for the 10-second backcourt at women's game, that fan will finally be like, yes, they get it right, you know, and feel vindicated. Yet, on the other hand, now you have unbelievably tight hand check rules where I can touch my offensive player once, and yet I cannot touch them ever again, either with a fingertip, with a arm bar, with two hands whatsoever. So it will be an interesting philosophy decision that coaches will use. Do I press because there's a 10-second backcourt, yet if I foul, then, and fouls are being called tighter than ever before in the women's game, then now do I run the risk of now having my potential best player in foul trouble? I've talked to multiple coaches that have had close scrimmages, and they have told me about kids that have received 3 fouls in 20 seconds, 2 fouls in a minute and a half. It will be a game changer for sure. I guess I can liken it to the NFL passing attack now for fans. I mean, you can't touch a wide receiver after 5 yards, and they've made it a pass-happy offensive system at that level. And now the new catchphrase for women's basketball is freedom of movement. And they're hoping freedom of movement will increase scoring opportunities and scoring chances and increase scoring overall. So we'll see what happens. I'm of the mindset that I think people will get in foul trouble, and you'll probably see a lot more zone than man-to-man at the beginning of the year. So we're working on both, obviously, but I'll be very curious to see what happens in the first few games on what coaches choose what philosophy.
I'm guessing you bring in officials for these close scrimmages and
Yes.
kind of feedback and all that.
How did the girls react in that situation?
Well, we did, we had some keys that we put on the board before every game, and my first key was understanding and accepting the new rules. I mean, we still have a couple of players on our team, just like other kids on other teams, that believe they've never fouled in their career. So now the accepting of these new rule changes will test their fortitude for sure. But our team, I will say, we did get frustrated in our last scrimmage because of so little contact, and I think that frustration still was from last year of, oh my gosh, I got beat up on the block, or I got hand checked, and I got mugged on the perimeter, and now you're calling this on me. Where were you last year? So once we get over that hurdle, I think we will be able to move forward with these new rule changes.
In regards to the hand check, real quick, so the person, starts to post you up, you're allowed to just feel them out one time, and are you warned to get your hand off? How does it?
You're not warned. You get that one touch, and
So
then if
you
you touch
just a
them
quick
again,
touch and then off?
yes.
And that's it, okay.
Similar to, we describe it as a hot stove effect.
Okay.
Touch the stove, see if it's hot, pull it off. If you touch them again with any body part, closed arm bar, closed fist, body, constant touching.
Even if they back into you, you have to.
If you beat them to that space,
Oh,
you
okay,
can
okay.
do that. But freedom of movement by the offensive player will be graciously called by the official. The offense has every advantage, in my opinion.
Is it painful for you to say the word zone?
No, no, not at all. I enjoy zone. I like changing it up, but the philosophy that I believed in and I was mentored with Coach Miller is we had an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator role, and we stuck to that. Now having Jesse Fleming on staff, and now he is that defensive coordinator title that I used to hold under Coach Miller, and he's a believer in 99.9% man-to-man. So we'll go with that. We'll make some adjustments if it's more pressure man-to-man or saggy man-to-man and then zone. But yeah, I won't mind changing it up if we play too much. But that's something that we definitely have to think about. If we're in foul trouble, we may have to go to zone a lot earlier than what we have in the past. I mean, I'll give you an example. We had some stats collected after our last scrimmage, and I mean, there was multiple people that fouled out for both teams. So one team member had 8 fouls. So unfortunately, there's no 6 fouls like the NBA. You still get 5. So there will be some significant changes, and there's other rule changes that I could go on and on about that people will understand, but down the road. But it's going to be a brand new ballgame for women's basketball this year, and I don't see the rules changing back.
We talked a little bit about Jillian Halfhill at the point. I mean, last year she took a really significant step forward. And what's your expectation for her this year?
She did take a step forward, considering the fact that her first year she was playing behind a Tracy Pontius, and then her sophomore year she was lost out the opportunity for more playing time in the position to Jess Slagle. Who both were heck of competitors, and now her first real playing time came as a junior, and she definitely blossomed last year. I think she has shown a lot of maturity. She is old for her age, but yeah, she feels definitely more comfortable in her skin at that position than she has at any other year, and we will rely on her to get us into offenses and rely on her to get us to the foul line in particular, because I think she's a player that does a tremendous job of drawing fouls, even last year. So now I expect her foul shooting numbers to go up even more.
Late last year, especially in your WNIT run, you got a lot of production on Jill Stein. Does that become the expectation for this year?
In my eyes, yes. I mean, she finished on an incredible high. You could make an argument quite easily that our run was due solely to her. I mean, she had 2 made shots in the Duquesne game that brought the Stroh Center roof down. And just really, the place erupted because of her performance. And she has had a tremendous summer, is in great shape. She has started our past 2 scrimmages. I anticipate her starting on Saturday as well. And before, she's come off the bench and has been that spark plug for us. So I see her in having significant time as well.
Is there a particular player or maybe players whose role you think is going to expand this year?
I think our bench will have an expanded role for sure, because as I said earlier, we only have 12 on the roster. I mean, you've got Leah Bolton hurt, Kennedy Kirkpatrick is recovering from her muscle injury. So we've only had 10, and all 10 have seen significant time, and they've been able to push each other in practice against our men's. And our men's practice squad has been able to push us, but the deeper team will definitely be the team that goes farther and has more success in this year because of those rule changes. But I anticipate a lot of people making contributions.
Will you talk a little bit about Miriam Justinger? You leaned on her quite a deal as a freshman. Are you have a raised expectation there, or has she developed her game? Just a little bit about her.
Miriam had an outstanding freshman year. I mean, after the Jasmine Matthews injury, Miriam now became the defensive stopper, where Jasmine Matthews had that role previously, but due to her stress fracture, I mean, she was limited even in our last on-conference game, limited going into the Toledo game as well to start the conference season. And Miriam definitely stepped up into that role, earned several starts. She's kind of like that silent assassin out there. When you put too much emphasis potentially on a double team on an Alexis Rogers or a Jill Stein, I mean, those 2 are fantastic passers, so they can find the open kid, and that open kid's usually Miriam Justinger. She, in my opinion, I think she is almost too unselfish at times. I need her to shoot more. Yet we put a lot of pressure on her to play at both ends a lot of minutes, and she rose to that challenge. Yes, will the same thing be asked of her? Most definitely. But I need to find her ways so she can get a couple breathers defensively and not is always on the toughest defensive, or doesn't have the toughest defensive assignment each game. So now we can put more emphasis on her at the offensive end, but she will be a contributing factor at both ends for us.
And you mentioned Jazz Matthews. I mean, is she back health-wise?
She played in our last scrimmage. I compare her injury to the Kevin Ware injury for the University of Louisville men's basketball player. Again, Kevin still played on his, and you saw what happened. I mean, if Jasmine were to continue to play on hers, that was a potential thing to happen to her. She rested it for several months, and it's a broken bone. I mean, that's what a stress fracture is, and it's a difficult place to heal, and it has taken a significant amount of time. I mean, she's worked hard running on the treadmill in the pool, playing pool basketball, you name it, we've done it. But she will see some time. She has not had a lot of time on the floor during the preseason because we have been cautious with her training, and she usually gets fewer reps than anybody else. But she will see time.
Any other questions? All right.